Hello and welcome back to the virtual show. My name is Paul Davis, on the wrong side of the screen, I may add.
And I'm Joe Longbone. Hello.
Can we quickly sort this
very
out?
Odd, yeah.
That's better.
That's
I got twinges then. So
yeah.
Thank you, Rich, for joining, and loads of people joining in, which is lovely to see. Let us know that you're watching live as well. Give us a hello and a wave.
Paul Sanders already has. He's put hello Anton Deck. I think he thought he was tuning in to watch I'm a Celebrity and got lost.
Yeah. It's not. This is the final night.
It's only down the road.
It's not our final night. Yeah.
No, big hello to everybody watching. Pop it in the comments, definitely. So penultimate evening this evening.
Indeed.
So we have Jonathan and Paul having a chat today, and then tomorrow we've got two more speakers, Marianne Chua and David Collier, and then that's the end of our winter show for this year. Sad times, sad times.
It is.
But it's been a great show so far.
Yeah. And
lots of comments coming through.
Yeah, which is lovely to see. And more importantly, this evening's episode is going to be driven by all of you lovely viewers as well. So we're getting a lovely hellos in, but as Paul and Jonathan enter the screen in a second, please start putting in sort of any questions that you like, and that'll steer the conversation for this evening. So it could go any way. So we're looking forward to it. So just quickly before we start, obviously we've done more than a week's worth of episodes for the winter show, and you can find all of these episodes on our website, which is cambrianphoto.co.uk. On there you can see guest speakers, and you'll see a full list of everyone that's on there that's been or coming up, and you're able to rewatch them at any time, and click on reminders of anything coming up as well. So go and check that out when you've got a second.
But not now.
But not now.
Stay here for this.
You've got to stay here.
Definitely. So excellent. Shall we bring them in? We'll introduce them.
Everyone give a big warm welcome to Paul Sanders and Jonathan Chritchley. Hello, everyone.
Hey guys. How are you, babe?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. Excited.
I'm just waiting for the comment from Paul.
I know.
He's got something.
Yeah.
Go on, spit it out.
Tip of his tongue.
No, not at all. I'm being very respectful because tonight I am Jeremy Paxman.
I thought you were Marty, and now you're Jeremy. You've got so many different aliases.
It's a sweet little mystery.
Oh, I know that's a Wet, Wet, Wet song now, only because you've educated me on the Wet, Wet, Wet. Jonathan is not impressed.
I mean, I don't know how you managed to give up that amazing band just to become a photographer. I mean, what were you doing?
It was hard. But to be fair, I'm living off the royalties of Love Is All Around, so it's okay. It's the only way I can afford to be a photographer.
You feel it in your fingers, do you?
Yeah. And in my toes. That's how much money he's got. He feels it in his toes and his fingers. Oh dear. Right, let's get this started. So Paul and I are going to drop off the screen, and we'll catch up with you guys at the end.
Which Paul?
Cheers, guys. No. We'll leave you on as long as you behave yourself.
Okay.
We'll substitute you out if you misbehave.
All right. It's okay, guys.
Head out.
Oh, I thought they'd never go, Jonathan.
Evening, Sanders. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well indeed. How is it in France? We've got snow over here. Have you got snow over there?
No, there's no snow. It's been a bit rainy today, but generally the weather's been good. It's been one of those, what they call Indian summers, I think. It's been amazing. But yes, you've got snow. Well, you're in Kent, aren't you? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, it's sort of on the coast for us at the moment, but the rest of the country has. Wherever I go, there's no snow. So, wanting to photograph in the snow, no snow.
Not always the way.
So I suppose I better explain what we're going to do tonight, hadn't I? So but we both know what we're doing. what we're going to do is Jonathan and I are going to have a chat. And if you guys watching have any questions, either from something we've discussed at that time, post it in the comments field, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. Or if you've just got random questions, then we'll try and do those as well. But tonight it's just going to be a conversation about photography, looking at some of the work that Jonathan's shot over the years, a little bit about his inspiration, more about the why he shoots than the what he shoots with, although we will touch a little bit on kit. And we've also got the very, very rare opportunity within this to have a look at a before and after pictures that Jonathan has kindly let us. So there'll be no comments about dust spots or anything like that, but you'll be able to see his starting point and his finishing point and ask questions around that as well. So really hope you guys enjoy this. And I want to actually start, Jonathan, if that's okay, with a question from a client of yours who sent me a message. It's Anne, who I believe you're mentoring at the moment with various assignments. And she asked me to ask you, what was the very first photograph you remember taking, but not as a professional?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first one I remember taking not as a professional was I bought my first professional camera, my grown-up camera, and I was sort of learning how to use it. And I remember I lived in Dorset at the time in the UK, and I remember going up onto a cliff and just taking a picture of the sea and the sky. And then a friend taught me how to print it into, this was obviously way before digital. And a friend taught me how to print it in the darkroom. And I remember seeing, working on this picture, and it was literally just a seascape of sea and sky. And I remember being, absolutely overjoyed with this very boring picture. It wasn't very good, but it was mine, and I'd taken it. And I think that's probably the first one I remember that was, sort of pre-professional, but it was still nonetheless a great buzz, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of passion for the sea and the sky seems to have sort of stayed with you really in the work that we've got on the show for you, from you tonight. The sea's always been a bit of a passion, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, I didn't grow up by the sea. I grew up in Surrey, just outside London, and I didn't really I love on holidays. I loved going in the water and that sort of thing. But it wasn't really too much later. I was in my early teens, and the sea became a huge problem. We moved down to the south coast of the UK, and suddenly the sea became where I wanted to be most in the world. And I think it was at that point really that everything sort of fell into place. And I think I remember saying to myself at that point, whatever I do for a job in my life, I want it to be something to do with the sea. So I think that's when it first happened. Yeah, it was. I remember it very vividly.
I don't remember very much about my younger years, I must admit. I think there's too much.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but there are quite a lot of things getting in the way.
Yeah. I hear you.
But what I really like is you put a set of pictures together for us, and you've sent us sort of a wide variety of your work. So the first couple of slides that we're going to put up on screen are some of your very early pictures, and I think one of the things that we were going to sort of talk about was actually, do we have to have like even though we did say off screen we were going to damage sales for Cambrian, and here we go with the first one. Do you really need to buy the latest all singing highest megapixels kit that you can to capture the sort of images that you take? I mean, if you can see the screen, if the boys will share the screen, you'll see the first image, which is.
Yeah, well, this is going back along. This is 2006 actually, and I just bought my first digital camera, which was a Nikon D70, and I think the sensor was 6.1 megapixels, if my memory serves me correctly. And I was actually when I was digging out these pictures to show you, Paul, I was thinking actually my phone now has a 12 megapixel camera, which is obviously twice what I used for this picture and many others at the time. And although, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I do want the best possible camera I can get to do my work, because my work, obviously, we print it and it goes on people's walls, and I want to be able to try and get as best quality as I can for people that buy my prints. But you know, going back then, you know, this picture sold as a print later and did really well. Not very big, but still. And it's, you know, it's I think there is a big emphasis on gear. And
yeah,
you know, I buy gear, of course, but I think it's probably, I just don't talk about it too much. I think it's you know, how much do you need to hear about the latest lens? I don't know, but this is but it was lovely actually looking at these pictures again and seeing, you know, what one was able to do with those little cameras and how amazing they seemed at the time. Do you remember those? Do you remember those days when your first digital camera?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first digital camera was a DCS 520, which was like a Kodak Canon combination, which I used when I was shooting football. And the file size was so tiny, but we were always cropping the middle out of it because I was always under lensed at the football. So you'd end up with like 3 pixels by 4 pixels, and that was it. You know, sort of a red blob races a blue blob towards a white blob, and that was it. You know, but the lovely thing about these, your sort of style, your black and white style has sort of changed a little bit over the time, but you still shoot square.
Yeah,
you know,
I do. Square? Oh God, I don't know. I just really like it. I've tried other things. I think it's a bit like your sort of favorite pair of jeans or something. You know, you know you should buy another pair, and you try it, but then you just keep going back to your original ones, and it's a bit like that with square. I just, there's something about the shape, the order of it, just the order of a square. I really like. I think it comes from various things. I used Hasselblad film cameras, and that of course was a square, and there's various reasons, but it's just something, and I've tried to get myself out of it just to see if I like other things. But as I said, it just doesn't seem like me. I feel once it goes into a square, it feels right. It's well, you do the same. You're a square guy.
I am very square. Yeah. But I think, you know, it's that sort of one by one. I you know, for me, part of it is laziness, because it means I don't have to decide on whether to shoot upright or landscape, and that makes life an awful lot easier. But there is. There's just sort of something very natural about it, and like you, going way back, I used to shoot with the Bronica SQA, and that, you know, I've always had a tendency to see sort of in squares, although I have shot for, you know, sort of the full remit of things, from panoramas to you know, sort of full frame shapes. But square is always where my heart is. It's the natural way I visualize you know, pictures, and it just seems to fall very easily. And like you say, the comfy fit, the pair of jeans is a really good analogy to it. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. You carry on.
I was just going to say, can you, the image, the wave picture that we've just sort of put up while we've been talking, can you just talk us through this one? What's your motivation with the ocean? What is it about this kind of picture that works?
I mean, the picture before was obviously a long exposure. This one, it really isn't. And but it's just, I mean, this picture was actually taken on the beach close to where I lived at the time, which is just down the road from where I live now, here in France. And it's an area that's very well known for its waves. And I just bought this camera and was trying to kind of get to grips with black and white using digital. And so this shot was taken at sunset, and I went out with this camera and pushed the ISO up with this poor little thing, and was shooting with a really horrible kit lens, and shot this. And I remember thinking at the time, I really like the shapes. I really like what it's doing, and the sort of layered effect. So the front wave is quite dark, and then it gets a bit lighter going back, and I liked everything about it. And it sort of it helped me. This picture really kind of helped me come to terms with what I was looking for in a photograph at the time, And I realized also that whether it was long exposure or fast exposure like this one, I could still get something that I'd be happy with. And funnily enough, this picture was my first ever sale of a picture. This one went on to be, which I found really bizarre, went on to be the cover of an Australian surf magazine. And at the time, I thought that was, I mean, they don't have shabby waves in Australia, you know, and yet they chose this picture to go on the cover of a magazine, which I thought was really crazy. But yeah, but I've always loved this one, and it has a sort of sentimental value to me as well, I think.
I think it's when you go back and you sort of see the first ones that sell or do well in something, they always have they always hold on to a part of your heart, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. The spray in this is beautiful. That sort of backlighting of the spray is just stunning. Yeah,
it was just because I live on the west coast and all the sun was behind it. It was just providing me with a lovely backlight, and yeah, it was lovely. And something funny enough, I've tried to take something similar with a sort of, you know, a more modern camera, just so I had something big, and I've never been able to recreate anything close to this. It was just something about that night that seemed to really work.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to move it on to your next early work, which, am I right in saying this is China?
You are. Yeah, this was so the last pictures were in 2006, and this is a bit. It's about 2 or 3 years later. I think maybe it was 2008 or 2009. And it was my first big trip, having turned professional out of Europe, and I'd gone to places like Venice and things like that. But I thought, well, now it's time to go somewhere far away, and this is the Li River in southern China, and this is a combination of arriving at a hotel, realizing that the river was a lot further than I thought. My research hadn't been brilliant. And so I phoned a tour company and said, can you provide a guide and can you get me on the river? And they said, yeah, sure. The guide came to pick me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and took me to this little village about an hour away. So we arrived in this little village on the river at 4 o'clock in the morning. And there's a guy, a fisherman on a bamboo raft. And he agreed somewhat unwillingly, although he was a lovely man, to take me out on the river. And I spent the rest of the morning just drifting down this river on a bamboo raft and stopping every now and then. And this was one of the pictures that came from that, which was, I mean, the reflections. It was absolutely still and not a sound. It was just an amazing moment. And it was one place on the river where you don't get electric cables as well, which was really a bit of a blessing. So yeah, it was a lovely moment actually, and one of those moments you'll never forget. You know, those mountains in the background really did look like that. They were just sort of, the mist is quite exceptional. Really beautiful place.
It's a really calming picture to look at, and the whole experience of that morning sounds incredible. You know, it almost, to me, when I look at it, I just get lost in it. It's like looking. If you had to look inside my head when I was doing a meditation, that's what it would look like. That's what I want to be sort of visualizing. Do you find that when you're out photographing on your own, not in a workshop scenario, that your photography is quite meditative?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this sort of stuff, yes. I mean, I wouldn't say that when I'm shooting sailing boats or horses, it's particularly meditative. No. It's more like you're trying to stay alive. But with this, yes, definitely. It's very relaxing, and I really enjoy it. I don't put any pressure on myself at all. No. If I go out, it's with no preconceptions and no ideas. It's just to go out and see what happens. So if I get something, it's a real bonus. If I don't get something, then it's a really nice morning out in a beautiful place. And I really do think like that. So that there's no pressure, and I think when there's no pressure, which is probably where you get the meditative thing from, then you can just do what you want and just be and just take what feels good. And that's what happened here, really. I think I took about 10 or 12 pictures on this one little place, and this was the one that really leapt out of me. It really felt sort of calm and soothing.
Yeah. So when you were in this place, did you start to pre-visualize what it would look like as an end result? You know, as a sort of final print, or?
I didn't really have to. It actually looked like that, except obviously clearly it wasn't in black and white. But I mean, it did. It looked like that. I didn't. I was kind of worried. I'm not worried. It's the wrong word. But I was sort of concerned that I wouldn't be able to do it justice, because it was so beautiful that I thought you know, as a photographer, as you know, all you're trying to do is tell your story of what you're looking at. I mean, that's how I see it anyway. So I'm standing in this amazing place and thinking, I'd like to tell people about this place. And so this picture will be my story about what I've seen. And then I started to think, well, I hope my story will actually do it justice. And, you know, it's always, I always remember one of my kids, my daughter, saying, I was going somewhere and I forget where it was. And she said, oh, will you take some pictures of where you've been so we can see it? And I said, well, of course I'm going to take pictures. You know, she said, yeah, but not your pictures, ones that so we can see what the place looks like. And it was like, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. So this was one of those where I think if you went to this spot, it would look like that. But I don't think you'd be disappointed. So I think I did. I think this particular picture, I was kind of relieved that I'd managed to do my job correctly, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm sure your daughter was delighted. My son was always the arbiter of truth when it came to my photography. Now he's 15, he's not really interested. He just thinks everything's dull. But he used to say that I was the master of taking bits of broken wood in the sea that nobody wanted. So thanks, Noah. That's
okay.
Great.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be worse.
Yeah,
I had someone tell me that their mother had said that when they were talking about me for some reason, they said, "Oh yeah, Chritchley, he's the one that takes those lovely pictures of absolutely nothing." And I thought, you know, I actually quite like that. I actually put that on my headstone when, you know, the guy that took. I quite like that sort of phrase. I think it's quite good.
That is good. Yeah, I like that. So do you know, generally for the sort of the keen amateur or you know, sort of the hobbyist photographer, do you think some of them put too much pressure on themselves?
Well, I think people do anyway, don't they? In anything, whether it's photography or anything else, I think it's you want to be the best you can, and you know, if you're at the start of a journey, learning something, you want to be, especially as you get older, you know, especially as you're an adult, you feel that pressure on you to be better quickly. And so, yeah, I think so. And I think really, I think it's really good to just sit back and let it happen and just, you know, not, the creative process doesn't need to be rushed. You know, it doesn't need to have that sort of panic or that worry about it. It just needs to happen. And then generally when you're not stressing, that's when those moments do happen, I think. I mean, you know much more about this than I do, but I think it's, you can switch your mind off. And, you know, like in this place, the only thing I was thinking about was this. I wasn't thinking about anything else in my life. I was thinking about this, and not in a worried way, but just in I'd like to do this justice sort of way, really. Yeah.
And the composition of this image, I you know, I mean, we're going to talk when we look at some of your other pictures a bit more about space, but I find the composition of this picture really fascinating, because the temptation for me, and probably in a big cliche way, would have been to almost have the reflection 50-50. And I love the way that you've dropped it right down to the bottom, dropped the top off the mountains, you know, but your subconscious puts those in. And somehow it seems to add even more depth to the image by having all of that extra space at the top.
Well, thank you. I mean, I did try the other way too. I tried having the horizon towards the top and having mostly reflection and a bit of mountain. It just didn't work. I think I felt that it was a bit obvious doing that. And I just wanted to, I mean, you just said it actually, you know, your mind fills in the gaps. And it is important for me, space in a photograph, because I think it's a bit like a question mark. It's a bit like, we're not going to tell you everything. But also, you know, to be honest, when you're standing in these places, you feel, you know, I feel like there's a lot of space. I mean, the skies are big in these sort of places, and I suppose in a way you just want to sort of reciprocate that. You want to put that into the photograph. So, but it wasn't. You know, I did try a few other things, but this was the one that kept coming back to me. I think I started with this, and then tried a few other things, and then came back to this and thought, no, this is the one I like the best. And I still like it. I still like this picture even after, you know, such a long time.
Quite rightly so. I'd have probably stopped after taking that one, to be honest.
Oh no! Don't do that. You got some amazing.
Oh, anyway, we'll move on swiftly. So going from somewhere where you can kind of lose yourself in the landscape to hanging off the side of boats. Now I know that you're sort of your experience from the interview that we did for the Todcast a few years ago. You know, we talked a bit about your sailing, and that sort of started when you were down on the south coast, didn't it?
Yeah, I did a bit. I mean, I had sailing lessons when I was down there, but I didn't really. It was just the water. I wanted to have anything to do with the sea, and but I did love. I mean, I lived in a town called Lymington, which is on the south coast of the UK. It's very well known as a sailing town, and there's lots about the sails that I loved, even at that point, even as a sort of young teenager. The tink 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 sounds that the ropes make against the mast, all those little things. I remember very vividly from living there, and of course subsequently being in these environments. But it leaves its mark on you, doesn't it? You know, things that really impress you when you're that sort of age and younger really stay with you. And I think really how this came about, I'd done a lot of tripod stuff, you know, like the Chinese picture, and you know, a lot of long exposure. And I was just really getting a little bit fidgety. I wanted to. This was 2008. This picture actually, and I wanted to do something else, still with the water, and still to try and create something, but just not the same. I didn't want to become formulaic. I wanted to just really push the boundaries a little bit. And I'd done some research about some of these sailing yachts. I mean, this boat is, well, 100 years old now, actually. Yeah. And these are the classic yachts that I shoot, and they're just amazing. I mean, they have been restored in many cases, and you know, it takes an awful lot of money and time to get them back up into the state that they can, you know, hit the water like this. But they're just incredible. And you know, when this was another moment, or these moments, or another one where your jaw hits your chest, because you could have been. I'm in a boat chasing these, and these boats, these yachts, although they're huge, cut through the water and go very, very fast. And when I usually use a rigid inflatable boat, which, you know, very fast with big engines on the back, and I have a skipper. They move very quickly, but of course the boat that I'm on sort of bumps on top of the water, whereas these sailing boats cut through it. So you really have to go like the clappers to keep up with them, and of course at the same time try and take pictures. So you know, you try and put alongside it, and then keep up the same speed so I can take pictures of the sails and other things, then get ahead of it and have it come past you, and then fall back. And it's all the time the boats that I'm on is going up and down and slamming about. So it's quite, you know, it's quite a tricky thing, but I love that challenge. So rather than, you know, if you think about the last Chinese picture, that sort of solitude and the tripod and the, you know, the time and everything, this is frenetic, loud, dangerous to a certain extent, and you know, covered in water, and it's, you know, it's all this, and I love that sort of that mixture, that blend of the two different styles. It really, really appeals to me, and still does. You know, I still do a lot of this sort of photograph, and I absolutely love the process. Is wonderful. I really love it. I really love being out and shooting this sort of thing. But I would be happy on the boat without a camera. I was there following these yachts without a camera, I'd still be just as happy. It's just that's kind of a byproduct, really. It's a wonderful place to be if you like that sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's fantastic. I love the you know, the sort of that background to it, all the kind of noise and the drama, because it contrasts so beautifully with the actual image itself, which is, it sort of has a feel of silence almost. You know, you've got that lovely sort of sweep of the waves in front, and the water just being cut through by the boat. You know, with the sails. There's you know, it feels very calm. You know, it's almost, you know, it really does. I just think, you know, all you can hear is the kind of the boat going by with the wind. You know, not the thumping of the diesel engine in the back of your rib.
Yeah, it's not quite, but that is the goal. I do want to obviously try and produce a print that seems calm. You know, like this one too. It's you know, that sort of stately calmness is what I want to try and get across. And although the truth is it's pretty loud and everything's happening and it's all crazy. Well, thank you for noticing that. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, that really is. It's that, you know, I kind of like it to just be a kind of a quiet moment in amongst all the craziness, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you certainly capture that beautifully. Now, you've sort of evolved from all of the boat to sort of details of the sail. at what point did you start sort of homing in on the elegance and the sort of the fullness of the sails? Because the sail pictures are, you know, some of my favorites of your work. I just love the tension and the wind and the sort of the energy that's kind of caught within these pictures. You know, and they're so graphically sort of organized. You know, there's an inherent beauty in all of them. You know, when did that sort of start to take shape?
Straight away, really. I on my first shoot, which was, I've done most of the stuff like this. I've done just off the coast of Saint-Tropez, so it's a drive from where I am. It's about a 7-hour drive to get there. And every year along the Mediterranean coast of France, they have classic yacht regattas, which start, you know, on Tibes, so I think in April time, and then they move along the coast and culminate in Saint-Tropez in normally at the beginning of October. And I managed to, and I'm not quite sure how, get myself invited to one of the events as a press photographer. And I'd never been a picture of a boat in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to really look at some of the press photographers to see what settings they were using, just so I'd be looking over their shoulder and seeing. And I had no idea what I was doing at all. And I went out, and on the first day I went out on a press boat, and there were, I think, maybe 6 photographers, including myself, on it, and it was horrible. They were all sports photographers, and they were really nice people, but very competitive with each other. And it was all a bit crazy. And so afterwards, I didn't really enjoy the process very much. It was all a bit too much. So afterwards, I had a quiet word with the organisers and said, you know, listen, I'm sort of trying to do something a bit different. And is it possible that I have my own boat? I don't mind paying. And you know, even if it's a small boat, I'm quite happy. And they said, well, you know, they looked around and they said, well, you can have that one. And it was just this small 6 or 7 meter rigid inflatable with a skipper. And they said, you can have that one. You can have it to yourself because no one else wants it. So I said, great. And that was really the start of it. You know, how I like to shoot is down low, elbows on the rubber, the inflatable bits, so it acts like a sort of a cushion, and then the camera repeatedly slamming itself into your eye as you're trying to take pictures. You know, perfect. And then whilst I was shooting, I think day 1 I didn't get anything on the press boat. I got nothing. Day 2 on this boat, I started to, you know, I had time and I was able to move around and get the light that I wanted to get. And then day 3, I took this picture. Funny enough, these are the sails of a very, very beautiful yacht called Moonbeam 4, which is still to this day one of my favorites. And that was the yacht that Princess Grace and Prince Rainier of Monaco went on the honeymoon in. So, you know, these boats have got some real history. That is just an absolutely stunning boat. And it's wonderful, actually. When they come into a harbour, they have a piper on board in full Scottish regalia, because the boat was built in Scotland. And he pipes every time they enter a port for the first time or a harbour. He's there piping their way. It's a wonderful thing to witness. Everyone applauds. You know, it's a really amazing thing. And I took this picture and suddenly realised that I hadn't really seen this sort of stuff so much before. I'd seen other pictures, but this really just, it hit my sensibilities. I just thought I really liked this, so I did a few the following day. And that evening, I was in the hotel, and I'd sort of got a few as rough sort of edits. And I sent them to Elizabeth of Black and White Photography magazine and said, you know, I'm here doing this and I really like these. What do you think? And she emailed me back the next morning and said, I really like it. If you can come up with another few, then let's do a big feature on it. And, you know, and I thought, great. So it's not just me that thinks this, you know, there is something about this. So I finished the shoot. I think I was there for about 4 or 5 days. Finished the shoot. I came up with maybe 9 or 10 of the pictures that I was happy with. And they ended up doing a 9-page feature in Black and White Photography magazine. It's 2008. And that was really the start of the whole kind of process, the whole thing. So it was really this picture that was the start of it all in many ways for me.
The catalyst, because I mean, you've had work sort of sold onto cruise ships and all sorts of things, haven't you? I mean, you've done quite well
I have.
Sailing pictures.
And a lot of this stuff, you know, a lot of these sail pictures go to. I mean, it was Ralph Lauren used these pictures, and you know, this picture is also the label of a gin company who work with seawater. It's amazing. I mean, I love that. I love that thing. And then Ralph Lauren have used it. Yes, it's been an amazing. These photographs have really. it just made me it felt really right, because I love making them, and I still I like the way they look. You know, I don't get sick of them. I still like them. So I really like the fact that they have been, these pictures really were the ones that kind of launched my career as a photographer.
Yeah.
And I really, this one particularly was, I know this is one of your favorites, isn't it, this one?
It is, yeah. I absolutely love this. It's the minimalism, the tonal palette is so sort of high key, apart from that lovely sweep of black down the edge of the sail. I absolutely love it. But what I love about this also is the space. And I know we touched on the space before, and you know, and we see this sort of style of composition repeated in a few of the pictures, where you've put everything over right on the one side. I mean, you're not necessarily a rule of thirds person, are you?
No, it's just what feels right, I suppose. This was really the first picture I took with this kind of effect of something on one side and nothing on the rest of the picture. So, and I've used it since, and we'll see later on. I've used it in horse pictures and landscape pictures. I've used the same sort of, well, rule's the wrong word, the same sort of technique, if you like. But I liked, you know, this, when I was taking this picture, I was really trying to get the bottom of the sail in the bottom right-hand corner and the top of the sail in the top right-hand corner. And I was really, although I was bouncing up and down like a loony, I was really trying to sort of frame that so that would happen. And I pretty much got it right. I had to crop a little bit, but pretty much it was right. I was very much struck about the fact that it was a white sail, and the sky was a sort of pale blue, and which I knew would go sort of light grey and black and white. I like that effect of a very high key sort of sail picture with not much going on, but enough there that would just, a picture of the wind, I suppose, in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect way of describing it, because it is, you know, it is the wind that you've captured. You just use the sail as the vehicle to kind of harness it, haven't you? It's just beautiful. Now, you've very kindly shared with us some before and afters, and this is the first of your before and afters.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people think that photographers like yourself do loads and loads of work to the images, and what I love about the selection that you've sent is that really most of what you do is actually at the taking stage, you know, at that point of, you know, the image coming to you, and then it's sort of fine tuning when you get the image back. I mean, could you just talk us through the sort of the process that you would go through?
Yeah, so this was taken with these cameras. This is the D850, the Nikon D850, and this camera has the ability to shoot. I can shoot in a square, and that was wonderful for me, because up until then I'd have to shoot in 5x4 and then crop, and you'll see that a bit later on with some other sort of befores. With this camera, I'm able to shoot in a square, which I love that. So you can see that the raw file on the right-hand side is square. This was in Zanzibar, and I was taking this whole sail thing. This is actually this year. So this picture was taken in, end of last year, December of last year. So almost a year ago. And the sky was a horrible sort of pale blue. It's beautiful, beautiful hot day. But I have the screen of my camera set to black and white. I've always done that. So most cameras, you can set the screen. So what I'm looking at in the back of the camera is black and white. So I don't actually see the blue sky. I just see a sort of grey thing. And I liked, this was actually, I'm actually on the boat of which this is the sail, and the crew are just changing the sail and doing something, and I'm just shooting it while they're doing that. And then this happened, and I took about 6 or 8 pictures fairly quickly of this little scene. Thinking I know that I can take this quite high key because the light, although the light was there, it was towards the end of the day, so the light was quite soft. And when I got it back and started looking at it, there's obviously an obvious difference between the two pictures, apart from the fact that one's in black and white and one's in color. Is that the one on the left, the final picture, is flipped, so it's round the other way. And it took me ages to realize that's what it needed. I sort of finished it, and it was high key, and I liked everything, but there's something about it niggling me, so I left it and went away and did some other stuff, and then came back to it. I thought, it's still not quite right. And then I just thought, I'll try flipping it. And as soon as I flipped it, just something went bing in my head.
Yeah.
And I realized, that's what I want. And that's the picture that you see on the left-hand side. And so really it's conversion into black and white. It's a lot of work with, I probably boosted the exposure a little bit, and then lots of curves just to get that contrast. I get rid of the blue to make it go almost white. You'll see that it's not white, it's off, it's cream.
Yeah.
And then get keep the mast really lots of texture in the mast. It needs that. Lots of texture in the rope, and in the in all that sort of stuff, and lots of texture in the top part of the sail. That's really some lovely old bits of horrible sail. I really like. And that's why I like this sort of picture, because it's quite simple, and yet the more you look at it, the more you see. And I suppose that's what I like about this sort of thing, that it's from the surface, it's quite a simple photograph just of a sail, but when you see the print, you can get your nose pressed up and you can see every crease and you can see every little dirty mark and you can see all sorts of stuff. And in the rope, and I really like that sort of something that seems simple from a distance, but when you get up close to it, it actually isn't. I like that sort of little trick, if you like.
Yeah. It's always interesting when you can see the sort of the handling of something, isn't it? You can see it's not just a photographic prop, it's actually used. And I like that you get the sort of the texture of the people that work with it within the fabric of the image. So just when why black and white?
Oh, Paul, really? That question?
Yeah, I've got to ask you that, because why black and white? Here I am. I'm black and white. You're black and white. It's all black and white to us. This looks lovely as a colour frame.
Just for me, there just isn't anything else. And it's a bit like, going back to Y Square and the favourite pair of jeans, I really have tried this newfangled thing called colour photography. I really have. I've given it a go. I'm not sort of, I'm not sort of completely blind to things. I appreciate a good color picture. I do. And I look at something, I thought, I should go and try something like that. And I'll go and I'll look at it and I think, it just doesn't feel, it's not me.
Yeah.
Something about black and white, the mystery of it, the fact that it's like telling a story, but not quite finishing it. It's like one of those stories that ends and you have to make up your own ending. You're sort of filling in the gaps, is the phrase you used earlier, and I really like that. It's that sort of thing. It's like black and white movies, wonderful. It's just that kind of, I don't know. There's something very beautiful about that, and I love color. I do, but I'm just not interested in shooting it. I don't. It doesn't hold my interest at all. For me personally, it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it, but it's just so when I look at those two pictures, I'm looking at the picture on the right, thinking, God, I really wish that was in black and white. And that brain is that part of my brain is looking at that, thinking, I know it's one of my pictures, but why is it sitting here on this screen with all these people looking at it in color? It's really it's not good.
Does it feel uncomfortable?
A little bit, yeah, it does. It feels kind of like I'm standing here in my underwear. It feels a bit like that, really. I suppose it doesn't feel like me, really. But anyway, but the left does, and I look at that and those sort of chalky tones, that sort of I just that feels like me. That feels right. The one on the left.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, I think, as a black and white photographer, is that your awareness of color is actually sometimes greater than that of somebody who photographs in color, because you're thinking about how the colors can be interpreted as tones and what the colors will do at the end.
Yeah, I suppose I am, although I think I'll be doing it so long that I don't actually spend a lot of time thinking about it. My brain just sort of sorts it out. It's like when you do anything repetitively, you don't really think about it, it just happens. So when I'm thinking about the sky and that pale blue, that blueness, I know that I can get that cream tone out of it, because I just know I can, because I've done it before. So it's just sort of an automatic process. But I get a lot of people saying, how do you see in black and white? What's the start of that process? And really, it is understanding what colors work better and what colors become what gray in black and white. because primary colors, for example, look terrible in black and white. You have to do something to them. I mean, I think you have to do something to them to make it better. And I think, you know, what I said earlier about if you have a camera, if you're interested in black and white and you have a camera that you can turn the picture in the back of the camera into black and white, then that's a really great place to start, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we'll move on from that to a lovely horse picture. Now you're very well known for your pictures of horses in the Camargue, and on this one again we see the pushing of the actual kind of content of the image over to the right hand side with the space, and there's a beautiful quietness about this. I imagine this looks absolutely sensational as a print.
Yeah, I like it. It's one of my favorites, actually, this picture. And it prints big, you know, 1.20 meters or something. It does. There's lots of texture in the horse, in the horse's head. But she is a mare, and she had fairly recently had a foal. And this was on a sunny day in the Camargue in France. And I was taking her picture and moving around, and she just dropped off. She just fell fast asleep. She just completely so relaxed and so tired after having the baby one. She just fell asleep, and that's what she's doing. She's fast asleep in front of me. That her eye there is completely shut, and she's, you know, dreaming about I don't know what. And it was just such a lovely moment. You know, the sun was warm, and it was all very lovely. And I got down fairly low, and that's the pale blue sky behind, like in the last picture. So it's just the sky that's behind. And I thought about the sail picture when I was taking this one. The one with the sail on one side, and thought I'll try the same and see if that works, and it does. And I really like this. And you know, often we've done exhibitions, and this picture is hanging up next to that sail picture. You know, they're displayed next to each other, and I really like that way of doing it. That there's no context at all. You know, it's just a sail picture and then a horse picture, and the only context is the fact that they're processed, you know, and printed similarly. But I like that whole thing, really.
So do you do your own printing?
I at a certain size I do. I don't have one of those huge printers. I'm just a bit scared of those. So I work with a company in London. The print space does the big stuff, and they do it remarkably well. But the smaller stuff I'll do if I've got time. But whatever happens, whoever prints it, it always comes back to me, and I have to check it over, you know, with all sorts of fine-tooth combs, and then make sure everything's all right. But yeah, I don't do so much. But this picture again, you know, it's more space than anything else, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, it is all about the space, isn't it? You know that, but this. You know, I mean, I'm assuming you're up to your waist in water in this one.
Well, I'd like to tell you that. No, I was on a bank the horses. It was the horses that were, but this time I got it right. I was just sort of, you know, in mud on the side, and it was quite a misty morning and very still in the Camargue, and there was a group of horses that came by, of which these four were in front. And it was just one of those moments, and I remember vividly. I remember that moment with the two front horses with the way their legs are crossed. I remember as they came past, I remember thinking, God, I hope I managed to get that, because that was a really lovely moment when that happens. You know, because this is even more chaotic. Again, working like this is even more chaotic than the boats, because with the boat you've got one very large thing which you're following, and it's, although it's fast, it's, you know, it's okay. These things, there's loads of them. They're all doing completely different things, and they're all going very fast, and you know, they're all completely oblivious that you're trying to get a good picture, and you want their ears to be up and all that sort of stuff. And so it's very hit and miss. And I was really happy to get this one where everything just came together. You know, it was really a good moment.
Because there's a lot of sort of spirit of the. You can really feel the spirit of the horses, you know, in these pictures. You know, what drew you to the horses in the first place? Because you're not a horse person, are you? Or
well,
you
I wasn't. I've become one. I wasn't. No, the Camargue. I mean, obviously, as you know, I live here in France, and I was looking for all the different options that I could shoot that were to do with water in France, because France has a lot to offer. The UK does too. Once you live in a place, you want to sort of explore what it's got. And I'd been told as a child that when you're standing on a beach and it's in the winter or it's a rough day and the waves are coming in, that white foam that blows off the top of the wave was called white horses. That was something I was told as a child. And so when I heard about these, I think the first time I shot these, this is a later picture, about 2016, but I think the first time I shot the horses in about 2009 or 10, I'd heard about these horses in the Camargue, and I thought I love that imagery of the horses coming in from the sea. It's the white horses. It just felt really good. So I managed to get a shoot with them and just completely fell in love with the idea of it, although I had no idea how I was going to make it work photographically because it was so crazy. I was trying to do too much. I was trying to get in too close and I was trying to be a horse photographer, I think, rather than being me. And sort of pulling back and doing something, and leaving space. I was trying to be something else, and it just didn't work. So I soon learned that I had to just try and carry on being me and make it, put it together. And that's what happened with this one, and luckily for me, others. So it was there was that whole spirit of the horse rather than just the horse. But what I like about working with them is, because in a way it's sort of wildlife photography, isn't it? I mean, I've sort of crossed over into wildlife, but what you can do with these animals that you can't with lions and zebra and hippos and rhinos is that you can give these a hug afterwards. You can. It's a sort of you feel like you have a real bond with them. They come up to you after a run, almost as if to ask, "Is that okay? Anything I can do? Is it how did I do?" And I really like. And they come up and they come really close and they sort of looking in your camera bag, and there's a real connection with them. And
I really a picture of that coming up in a minute, actually.
Yeah. But I really like that that thing. And you wouldn't catch me giving a lion a hug afterwards if I'd been on a shoot with these guys. You really have that connection, which I really like. Yeah,
I've kind of got these the wrong way around then, because I should have done the hug picture next. But this is I'll go forward one, then we'll go back. This is
there you go.
So
a rather bearded me after a shoot, and the horse just comes up and says, "How was I?" Say, "Okay," and we have a little sort of private moment. And it's they really mean it. They're very affectionate and really like the sort of attention and fuss. So yeah, it's nice.
You look like a horse whisperer.
Yeah, I don't know what I look like, but it's I think the horse was just kind of reassuring me more than anything else. Yeah. It was like it was okay, you did all right, it was that sort of thing. So
you've done a good job, Jonathan. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really lovely. So we're just going to go back one slide, because this is before and after of the of a set of the horses, and we can really sort of see your original frame on the right hand side and what you've ended up with. I mean that's quite an aggressive crop on that picture, but it really, really works.
Well, I just ran out of lens. I didn't have enough lens to get to where they were. And often, you just have to rely on crop. I'd rather have to get the photograph I want by cropping than not get the photograph. And it's fine with me. And in a way, it's best to shoot these a bit further away, because as they get closer, you just get covered in water. You just get drenched. So it's best in a way when they're a bit further away. They're more confident in their stride, and as they get closer, they start to just think about where they're going to go to avoid you. So, and I just didn't have enough lens to get to them, but I saw them coming. And what happened was there was a bigger group of about 6 or 8 horses, and they just split off as they were running in. And I thought, well, I'll just stick with the middle 3 and just see what happens. So obviously you can see the bits of horse on the left and right hand side. The guy that's just to the right of the group, at one point he was with them, and then he just fractioned off and did his own thing. So I stuck with the lead horse and just kept focusing on his nose. And then when I looked at it back, well, you can see that it's wonky as well. The horizon's, going down a bit on one side, but that, of course it does. I mean, these are moments that, adrenaline takes over really. So I don't care. But I could see that there was something about this picture, the sort of full on, it's called single file, this one. And it's done very well as a print. And it was a cloudy morning, and again I thought, great, high key. You know, it's very soft morning light, and I thought I can take this really high key, which I did. And but yeah, a great moment, and a bit of aggressive cropping into the square, but still I think it was worth it.
Yeah, well, I was always taught when I was working at Reuters. I was always taught by one of the picture editors there that you look at the picture and you say, "Where's the story that I'm interested in?" And that's where you crop to. And you're bang on there, because it's just beautiful. But it is very reminiscent, like you were saying, of the waves rolling in. It is that kind of sort of thing. And I know when I think when we met the first time we did the chat for the podcast, I think I referred to them as reminding me of a Rupert book that I used to have when I was little, which always depicted the waves coming in as white horses. So
I had no idea what you were talking about. I pretended I did, but I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. But then you've been out and you bought a Rupert book, I'm sure, and away we go. Now I've got a couple of questions before we move on. There's one from Alan Murray up there in snowy Scotland, who wants to say, what are your printing preferences? So when you're printing your own image, sort of, how do you go about preparing your image for print by you? Because I'm assuming at the end of the day, it's the same sort of image that you send off to the print space. But do you have a particular a paper or a sort of feel to your print that you like?
Yeah, the paper, I've always used the same paper. It goes back to this boring, square, black and white, same paper. It's a Hannah Muller photo rag that I've used right from the start. I did try lots of different papers. Every now and then I try something new just to see, but I always come back. Hello, Alan. What a great beard Alan's got. Look at that. Man, that's a wonderful beard. I'm very envious. That is good for you, mate. That's wonderful. So Hannah Muller photo rag is the paper. It's very matte. I don't know if you know the paper, but it's very, very matte and has a wonderful texture. So that's really it. And also in terms of preparing the file, well, I just, with a picture like this, it's quite high key. I just really push, talking technically, the histogram really, it's almost touching the sort of right-hand side, but not quite. And then I tone my pictures with a sort of very, very light sepia tone, which just pulls away those highlights and gives them a bit of a tone as well. So nothing more than that. I don't really sharpen very much anymore, because I feel that sharpening was really, for me, it was something that happened for when lenses and cameras weren't quite as good. But now the cameras are now so good and the pictures are pretty sharp. And I don't really like over sharp pictures. So I tend not to sharpen so much anymore. But nothing more complex than that. I just, I suppose it's just years of doing it, and you know what looks right, and that's whatever it is, right.
I'm very much of the school with printing that Command P works quite well.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much what I do. What comes out of the camera and I process it. It is literally Command P, and away I go. If it's anything more than that, I get completely lost in all the technical side of it. And like you, I stick to one paper. I use a platinum cotton by Photospeed, and I love it. I know some photographers talk about having a different paper for every single kind of different sort of picture they have. But I just thought, well, actually, this is what I like my work to look like. So I stick with the sort of the consistency and the feel of it. And there is another a question from Rose Carmine, who says, do you look after your own sales, or do you have sort of an agency or an agent that do them for you? I mean, I assume the commercial sales, do they come direct to you?
Selling them? No, they come to me. I've never had an agent. I think I think because of visibility of photographs now, with social media and websites and everything, and with a little bit of exposure in the right places, in magazines and things, people just found me. And so, for example, with the Ralph Lauren thing, they'd seen my stuff online. I don't know quite where they had or how they had. There was one famous business person who had one of the big brands, I forget who, said, that he knew that 50% of his advertising worked, but he just didn't know which 50%. And I think I kind of agree with that. You know, one tries to know what works, and it's very difficult to find out what does, but as long as something does, then it's okay. And no, so I don't have an agent. It's all done through me. We have people in the office that sort of feed emails when I'm away shooting, but no one actually physically trying to sell them. It just seems to sort of have happened organically, which, you know, has been amazing. I've been very lucky, for sure. And
how do you negotiate your own rate?
Oh, geez, now that's really hard. It's not obviously for a print. It's fine, isn't it? Because a print, you know how much a print is going to be, but when it's image rights, that's just a nightmare. So someone emails me and said, we want it, like, for example, the sale picture on a gin bottle. Now, how do you price that? So what I tend to do now is I go to one of the big agencies, the picture agencies, you know, I can't even think of any names, and some of the websites they've got, they allow you to get a quote back by filling in a form. So they say, what's this picture going to be for, and how many people are going to see it, and blah, blah, blah. And at the end, it spits out a price. And so I take that price, and I sort of add about 40%, and then I figure that's the price I'm going to ask. And that's generally how it works. And so it's not, there's no easy way. I suppose, now I've got a better idea, but at the beginning, it was really hard. It was really hard to price these things up. Now it's got a lot easier now, but at the start, it was really hard.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just love that. I'll just add 40%. that really works for me. I'm going to push all my prices up now. So if anybody wants a print from my website, if you get in tonight, you'll get it 40% cheaper than it is going to be tomorrow.
You're not selling my print, are you?
Yeah, well, I've sold out of your print. I've used all my paper on yours this afternoon in my little online shop that I opened up with I wish I was Jonathan Chritchley.
Don't forget, I know people in Kent. Don't forget.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'll wake up with a horse's head in my bed. I know.
Exactly.
So moving on slightly, we're going to go up to Iceland, and this is you with an Icelandic. All the horses love you, mate. They all love you.
No, the horses love anyone. This was in January of this year, or February of this year. Just as social distancing was being talked about, and this horse obviously had no idea. I know this is what happens when you make up your mind that you're going to shoot horses in the wild, as this was. You have to realize that most of the time you're going to spend just telling another horse to get out of the way, because as soon as you get yourself in the right position to shoot a horse that's over there somewhere, another horse will come up and just poke his face right in your camera, or right in your camera bag, or right in the way. But it's such fun. I'd just been taking a picture of another one, and this one just came right over. It's like he wanted to see what I was shooting. He was looking and kind of nuzzling me and pushing me, as you can see. I'm trying to concentrate and be professional, but at the same time, it was just, I mean, look at him. This is in Iceland. They have these beautiful, furry coats in winter, the horses there, and they're just so loving and so lovely. So I just wanted to give them a big hug. But anyway, this is me on location in Iceland in February.
At least you look warm.
I was very toasty. I was really warm and waterproof and snowproof.
Yeah. So, I mean, these horse pictures are just so special. The spacing between them is they're just beautiful.
Thank you. This is also in Iceland, and I wasn't so warm. We had to wait for about 4 or 5 hours for this group of horses to come through this fjord, standing in the water. So this is quite cold. But they came through in a huge group, and then at the end there were these stragglers, and they just came through in little groups. And then that's when I kind of found this. You can see in front of the lead horse, there's the trail of the horses that are in front of him.
Yeah.
You see those are the horses already gone through, and these ones are coming in behind. And then to my absolute joy, I saw it was a black combination, and again hoped that I was able to get the picture. And luckily, they were all looking rather beautiful. They had nice positions, so I was very lucky, really. Yeah.
I mean, your horse workshops are incredibly popular, aren't they? I mean, you've been going to the Command now, doing workshops. How many years?
10.
Yeah. And that's incredible.
Yeah, amazing. It's such a great thing, and it's a really amazing experience. Iceland too. I run workshops there with the horses, and that's also amazing. It is really an amazing experience to work with these animals. And of course, we have a lot of people that you don't see who are responsible for getting the horses in the right place. And without them, I mean, not in this case actually. This was pure we knew some horses were coming through. They were being moved from one part of Iceland to another, and we got told that they were going to be crossing this fjord at a certain time. So this was a slightly different thing. But in the Camargue, the horses are put in certain locations and then asked very nicely to run towards me or whoever's there. So it's good fun.
I mean, it sounds great fun. It sounds exhilarating.
It is, and very rewarding. It's as I said, they're very, very lovely creatures to work with. Again, you can see on this picture, I've used that, put everything on the right-hand side and have space on the left, like we've spoken about. And this, I was shooting this one almost, and I've done this since, almost like a fashion shoot more than anything else shoot. I was treating the horse a bit like a model or something. I mean, not physically, but just in my mind, creatively. I was thinking, this feels like a magazine shoot. It doesn't feel like anything else. Because this was snowing, I mean, heavy snowing at the time, and it was just, the mane all wet and straggly, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. It's an amazing experience to be here. Yeah,
I mean, that sort of that composition with the space and the shapes, it's beautiful. But that mane is spectacular, isn't it? The way it's all sort of the detail in it is incredible. I absolutely love it. I can imagine how excited you would be, when you sort of going through that process. I mean, it's a complete dream.
Yeah, it is very, very special, and I can't wait to go back. I was supposed to be going back in January, but it doesn't look like that's going to be on. But I shall be back fairly soon anyway.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I've got another before and after for you now, and this sort of I want to sort of start this with a question before we get into the before and after stage. Dave Varro asks, would you ever go back to shooting film?
That is a good question. I don't know if you've I've still got the Hasselblad, and I still listen to it every now and then because it is a wonderful sound that it makes. But I'm not sure. I think the whole digital process suits me because I'm a bit impatient. So as you can see, my processing, I mean, as you might be able to see, my processing isn't very long. I take 5 to 10 minutes on a photograph, if that. And if it goes beyond 10 minutes, I'm starting to think that I'm trying to fix the picture rather than enhance it. So with a picture like this, it's the digital process for me is quite an easy one. What's difficult is taking the picture, and that's the way it should be. I'd rather go through the pains like bumping up and down on a boat or getting mauled by horses. I'd rather be doing that and then sitting on the computer quickly and then doing what I have to do. And the darkroom, although it's a very effective and a wonderful tradition, I couldn't wait to get out. It's smelly and it's dark, and I'm incredibly claustrophobic as a person, and I used to really be struggling in the darkroom, and I used to want to get out as quick as I could. So no, I don't think I would. I mean, if I did, it would just be for fun rather than professionally, I think, Dave. But that's a really good question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm with you. I've had film camera. I bought an RB67 over lockdown to do a little film project on, and I just kind of got bored with the faff of it. I'm a bit impatient with wanting the result out of the camera. I have no problem with waiting for hours for a photograph actually in location, but having worked in a dark room when I was younger, it's like, oh, I'm done with that. Thank you very much. It reminds me of too many nights sat at the football, agitating my film in the back of the car while everybody else was going home.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's not good.
No.
But go on, sorry. Go on.
No, after you. I'll be polite.
No, I don't know what I was going to say. You go ahead. I have no idea.
Well, what I love about your Venice pictures is that sort of ethereal, mysterious sort of mood, and I think in this one we can really see the before and after. Actually, apart from the conversion and the crop, there's not a lot gone on. I mean, so you seem to be able to work some magic in the camera as you're taking, and then just sort of enhance that magic in your processing.
Well, it's not so much that I work any magic, as you know. It's more that I just tend to take more pictures when it's like this. When it's like this particular day was freezing cold. It was in December, freezing cold. It was raining. It was foggy. It was really horrible weather, but exactly the sort of weather that I like the best for two reasons. One, it allows me to simplify a very complex place, because Venice is incredibly complex, and then the fact that mist comes in immediately adds a sort of cloak of mystery and simplicity about it. And the second thing is that you don't get so many people around when it's like that. So this was actually on top of Rialto Bridge, very early in the morning, not looking the traditional way. Everyone normally goes on the bridge and faces up the canal and gets all that. But I went the other way, and I found myself being absolutely obsessed with these 4 posts, and spending far too much time on this picture, because I realized that the positioning of the 4 posts was absolutely crucial to whether the picture would work or not. That if one post overlapped the bank, the sort of walkway at the side, then that would ruin it. If one of the posts overlapped another of the posts, that would ruin it. And then I realized that there was only one place I could take this photograph from. There's one place on the bridge I could take this photograph from. And there was a group of about 30 very hardy Japanese tourists who were taking selfies right in the place I wanted to be. And I was very conscious that the mist and the rain was starting to lift. So I thought, fairly quickly, and went over to them and said, you should really have a look at the view on the other side. Come with me, let's have a look. And I sort of ran over, and they all came following me and said, oh yeah, look. And they all started taking pictures of the Grand Canal. I snuck back, put my tripod there, and took this. And I think I had 3 cracks at it before they realized that I'd actually pulled a bit of a fast one on them. But I managed to get this picture, and I was so happy that I spent the time on those posts, because I think any other way that it wouldn't have worked. And that's why I love this, because when you're working with the sailing boats or the horses, you don't have time to think about things like that. You just have to shoot, and then you can make certain commitments to your composition as you're going. But ultimately, you just have to hope that you've done your job. Whereas this, I really had time to think about it, and really, it was a real sort of puzzle, And I like that mixture of where I wouldn't like to just do the puzzles, and I wouldn't like just to do the frenetic, crazy stuff. But having the balance of it, for me personally, really, really works.
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? It's getting that balance right is key to your continued enjoyment of your craft, and also the inspiration behind it. But that little bit of separation between those poles, and that last pole and the bank, is so key to that thing.
Yeah.
And
those posts aren't there anymore,
aren't they?
It was nothing to do. Someone said, "Did you go out there with a hacksaw or like a chainsaw or something after you took this picture and cut them down?" Well, I didn't, although it would have been not a bad idea. But I went back, I think, the year later, and they'd all been taken down. So I was in many ways rather delighted by that, to be honest.
So Dave Farrow asks, in this particular image, he says it looks like there's far more mist in the left-hand one than the original. Have you sort of enhanced the mist at all? And if you have, what mist filter? How did you get a mist filter?
No, I didn't. All I did was it does, and that really happened through. You can see that the one on the left, the finished version, is a lot lighter and brighter than the one on the right. And so really, it was using curves. So on the right-hand one, it would have been crop, and then sorting out the angles of the house, because it was all a little bit, dodgy, and the crop. Then black and white, and then using curves just to really pull the hell out, really bring everything out. Really. And then I carried on sort of dodging the buildings, just so that with a big brush, just taking those buildings back a little bit. So until I got them, I wanted them to be there, but not all of them and not everywhere. I just wanted the sort of little bits going through. And it's funny, as soon as I brightened the whole image, a lot of it started to disappear anyway. So it wasn't an awful lot to do. It was just the fact of increasing exposure, I think, that made that happen.
No, very nice. So I've got a question from Janice Payne on this particular image as well. What black and white conversion do you use?
The one that says black and white. I don't have any. I've
got a secret.
Janice, thank you for your picture, Janice. No, sorry for your question, Janice. No, I don't have any secret methods. I know that a lot of people get very bogged down in this decision because they think there's a right way and the wrong way, but there really isn't. It's just, the idea for me is just to get the color gone. And I'll do whatever I can do to get rid of that. And Lightroom and Photoshop both have a black and white button, which I press very soon after the picture ends up on my screen, just so I can feel at home with it. So that's what I use. I use just a black and white thing, the button that you press, or and then off the color goes, and I feel happy. But there's no right or wrong way. You just want to get the color gone, really. You can just desaturate if you want to, but that's the way I choose. I think the color button in Lightroom, if you convert to black and white using that, then you have those sliders that you can mess around with afterwards.
You do,
and that's quite good fun, especially if you're working with, I mentioned earlier on, if you're working with prime colors, the very bright greens and reds and things, you can use those sliders to affect what the original color would have been, and that's actually quite effective. I wouldn't use it for a picture like this, but I have done on other things, and it's quite good fun.
Yeah, I went through a spell of using Silver Effects to do some of mine, but I found it just far too crunchy, and now I just use one of the Lightroom presets. I think it's the soft one, which suits my style of shooting. And it's like one button and then a couple of sliders. It makes life so easy. I'm just not sort of set up to go kind of exploring all different sorts of presets and other people's sort of style of things that they then sell as a package of presets to you, because then it starts to look like their work and not mine. I think the consistency and style runs throughout your work. The early stuff was a little bit different. It was a bit darker, but your sort of, the stuff that you've shown us tonight, the images that you've presented to us, they've all been of a very similar sort of feel and energy. And that the way you convert them suits that beautifully. It really does capture it.
Thanks.
So let's move on a bit further north this time, Jonathan.
Further north.
I think it's further north. Are these north or are these south?
No, these are very north. Yeah, these are very north.
Very north, aren't they? So these are some of your really recent work, aren't they?
Yeah, these are recent. It was a sort of project that I've been working on since 2011, I think. This is in Greenland, and I've been going there a few times since 2011 and try to sort of put my spin on the icebergs and try and make them work for me, but just couldn't. Everything I tried, I hadn't really taken a picture I was happy with until my most recent trip. And then I suddenly got that when I was out on a boat, because of course most of these are shot from a boat. I was out on the boats thinking, these are like mountains. These icebergs are like mountains. And of course the whole environmental issue hits you full on, because you think, well, these mountains are, the ice, the ice is breaking from the glacier, and it's are my kids going to be able to bring their kids here to see the same thing? And it was that question I asked myself that made me suddenly start to realize that I should be shooting these in a different way. So I started to feel very nostalgic almost about them. And I remember, some of those wonderful photographs that people like Ansel Adams did of the parks in California, and those mountains that he and other photographers took of those wonderful mountains and canyons and all sorts of stuff, how you can go and they're still there, but how these icebergs aren't, and how even every day you go and they look different, and they have a whole different, they have a lifespan, as sadly as does, the whole area, the whole, it's very sad actually. It kind of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and and very, very sad. So I thought I'm going to try and put a sort of a different spin on my pictures, make them more complex, make them more kind of, for example, this, what an amazing what an amazing structure, which now isn't there anymore. And of course it isn't, because it's melting and off it goes. And I wanted to give each photograph, I wanted it to have a personality and a fact, a feeling that it would be there forever, but in fact we know that there isn't. And it's that sort of feeling that I wanted to sort of try and get across. And I shot most of these pictures. There's a series of about, I don't know, 12 or 15 of them, and they're pretty much all shot on the same day, unbelievably. We were out on a boat for about 5 or 6 hours, and that was the morning that I had this sort of idea that I'm just doing it wrong. I'm trying to be all minimalist and trying to do things wrong, but I need to go the other way. I need to try and kind of turn it all back and be more traditional. Yeah. As soon as I felt like that, and I was looking for the right conditions, then it all seemed to work. And playing with the light, which is something as a black and white minimalist I've never really done before. I'd always wanted cloud and all that sort of stuff to just create my own mood, like in the Venice picture you just saw. Whereas in this is sun breaking through cloud, very traditional sort of landscape thing, which I've always shied away from. But I used it in these pictures just to try and push myself a bit, but also I felt that these wonderful things just deserved it. I wanted them to be sort of, these pictures almost like a monument to the Arctic. And in fact, the series of pictures is called A Song for the Arctic. And I'm working with a gallery in the UK, and we are working, and we're giving 10% away to charities who are doing a much better job than I will ever do in promoting that. It's a charity called Client Earth, who basically use the law to try and save the environment. It's an unbelievably brilliant idea. And so, so this is a fairly recent project, and I'm very happy with these pictures. It's very different for me, but it's still square and it's still black and white, and there's still nice lines, but it has a different sort of feeling, I think.
When I was looking at these, when I was putting the slideshow together for this evening, I was thinking they look like they were. There's a very much in the sort of the mold of Ansel Adams type landscapes, in the sort of the tonal feel of them, the compositional feel of them. There's a comment in the chat from Helen Smith, who says it really respects the sort of majesty of the place, and they are magisterial, aren't they? I mean, they have that feel. They just feel enormous. And then, like you say, they're so transitory, because they break off, they go down the channel, and they disintegrate.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you, Helen. That's a really kind thing to say, and I'm really happy that it makes you feel that. And, you're right. What I felt is trying to make them fit into what I wanted to do was kind of wrong. Seeing the circumstances that we are in trouble with this. And I didn't want it to become another thing that I just adapted to what I do. I kind of let them tell me what I should do. And then I realized that's what I've been doing wrong for 9 years. Was I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole, whereas in fact, just look at them and then it was like, it became obvious. Then it's like, why didn't I see this before? And then as soon as I put that together in my sort of unbelievably slow, dim-witted way, it all came together, and then it all rolled off fairly quickly after that. So it was good.
I mean, they're a beautiful set. Now I'm going to move to the next one, which is the one with the moon. But before you talk about it, there's a sort of a kind of a question again from Helen, and she said, you mentioned earlier that you like to go out without a set idea of what you're aiming to get. Do you have a familiar feeling when an image comes to you, and is it possible to describe? She says, I'm interested that you have said you don't think too much. And I mean, we discussed this one when we were chatting earlier in the week, and how you don't have a fixed plan. And I think, you research a bit, but you're not sort of wedded to all the apps that kind of bring some pictures together. You sort of take what you're given almost, don't you?
I do. I am very opportunistic as a photographer, actually. Obviously, when one runs workshops, it's a different thing because there's things that have to be planned, and that's fine. When I'm shooting on my own, and this is what I think I was meaning earlier on, Helen, was that I don't put any pressure on myself to get the photograph. It doesn't matter where I am and how far I've traveled. I don't think, right, today I've got to get something. It's either it happens or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, that's fine. And if it does, that's also fine, but maybe even a little bit more fine. So it's obviously lovely to get a photograph that you're happy with. But yes, there is a moment that you think, as you're taking your picture, you just get this little sort of, I can feel it in my fingers, Paul. That expression that you.
And my toes.
In my toes, yeah.
It's a sweetness to it.
On coming. You get to that point when you think, oh, there is something. There's something here that I can feel. Like I said with the picture with the horses and the crossed legs, you just feel that little rush of adrenaline, thinking, "Oh Christ, I hope I got that," because that was amazing, an amazing moment, really. And I suppose the only pressure I put on myself, as I mentioned earlier on, is I hope that this does it justice. I hope that I can do this justice. And this picture actually was a typical. I suppose some people, they use all the apps and they know exactly what time the moon will be in the sky and all those sort of things. I'm certainly not one of those people at all. That would horrify me. I much rather just be there and just see what happens and then be ready for it. I'm someone who's quite prepared when something happens because I know my way around my kit and I know where everything is and I can change from one lens to another fairly quickly and be ready. But this, for example, this picture, saw the moon, wanted something to put under it, got the guy on the boat to move the boat a little bit to one side until I found the little sort of V thing, and there was the picture. And I asked him to stay there a little bit, and then we stayed for three or 4 minutes. I had the right lens on, took the picture, and off we went. So it was very much a spontaneous thing. This is obviously a daytime moon, so the sky was fairly pale blue again, but I just darkened it just to bring out the moon because the moon was very, very faint. And you've got that sort of lovely dark corner, and this really reminded me of a couple of the sail pictures I've done. Again, I would see this hanging next to a sail picture quite comfortably, and I like that. But being in Greenland and with these amazing things is probably the most humbling experience I've ever had in my life. It's just unbelievable. And as I said, I have fairly young kids there, young teens. I just hope with all my heart that they will be able to take their kids, or they will be able to see this for themselves, and before it's too late.
Well, fingers crossed that we managed to do something. Now I've got two questions, based around locations. So one from Steve Eckersley, which is, have you got a favorite location you want to return to and explore further? And then on a similar theme, Chris Ward has said, is there somewhere in the world that you have not been that you want to photograph? So, perhaps we can address those two with one.
Yeah. Well, to get to the second question first, I am, I have traveled a lot. I've been very lucky to travel a lot, and I am, and there are places on the sort of bucket list, I suppose. You and I are talking about Newfoundland at the moment, and that's still somewhere I quite like to go to for lots of reasons. I've been lucky enough to go to Japan, China, a lot of the African countries and shoot. I think I rate. There was an amazing photographer called Chip Hooper, who's a Californian who very sadly died very young. He was only 53. And he had always, he was a wonderful black and white photographer and shot on big format cameras. And he said he wanted to shoot every ocean on the planet. And sadly, he never got around to doing that. But in a way, I kind of like to think that he sort of passed the baton to me. And that's something perhaps that I'd like to do. I tried to work out the other day, lockdown boredom, how many oceans and seas I'd actually photograph. I think it's about 16 or 15 or something, which is not bad. But I think maybe it's more about the seas. I think I'd probably like to do that. I'll take over his dream and say I'd like to photograph all the seas on the planet at some point, and I'd be happy with that. And in terms of the first question, where would I like to go back to? God, I mean, everywhere, because I love everywhere I go to, really. Iceland is a country that I first visited in 2009. Steve, this is the answer to your question, Steve Eckersley. Thank you for that. I go back, if I hadn't been 2 or 3 times in a year, I feel very sad. I love that country. Used to be for the landscape, which I still love, but now it's at the moment its project is the horses. But it's, what an amazing country. I absolutely love the people, love the landscape, and I never get sick of it. It's like going home. So there's a place I'd like to revisit. I'm very lucky to live in a country where I can photograph the 3 things I love the most. There's lots of sea in France, as there is in the UK. I can photograph the horses here, and I can photograph the sailing boats here. So I'm very lucky to be able to do that here in one place. But apart from that, the place I'd like to go back to is somewhere like Zanzibar or Mozambique, those countries, those East African countries. There's unfinished business with me in those countries. I'd like to do more there. So there you go. Long answer, Steve. Sorry about that.
And I think, so as we kind of draw to a close, is there a new book? Because your first book was very well received. I have a copy.
Thank you. It is. We just reprinted that, so I've got more of it now, which is great, because there was a big demand that was coming up. Really, just to stall the fact that it is time that I did something else, and I haven't decided what. So maybe you guys out there can help. I'm not sure whether it should be sailing, whether it should be horses, or whether it should be just a sort of a mixture of both. So any ideas would be gratefully received. I'll make sure you get a copy if you get the right one.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of suggestions from people, which would probably end up being 3 books.
Yes, yeah. That'd be quite nice. Yeah.
I don't know whether there's going to be any more questions, but I mean, we're running up to our hour and a half allotted time.
Yeah, God, I'm so sorry, everyone, to keep you. From your Friday evening. Sorry about that.
We've got one person watching, and they've stayed, and I think that's actually Joel. He's just logged on to Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
With just all the questions have been made up. All the names are completely made up. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving us the time tonight. It's been really wonderful to just have a chat. I know we talk. It's always a
delight. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sorry to keep everyone up. But I've really enjoyed it, as always. We always have fun. But thanks for taking the time to do this as well. It's been great fun. So thank you.
There's a lot of selection ideas for books coming in. There's Greenland, the icebergs and its connection with environmental issues from Adriano, who I believe.
Doc. I do.
Chris Ward says all the seas. Rob Joseph, how about urban architecture?
I could if it's underwater, I suppose that could work. Canary Wharf, down there.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of love for you. If I said how many messages of people coming in saying how much they've enjoyed this, it literally is. It's like a little waterfall of praise for you. There was just one point that I needed to make for you. I mentioned the Rupert book earlier with the white horses, and the lovely Tanya Marie had the same Rupert book at me, and she said,
"So you're totally not Rupert."
Totally really? Rupert. Okay. There you go. You see, totally Rupert.
And Tanya, have you still got that book? I mean, you'll have to let us know, because if you've still got it, then take a picture with your phone of the picture that Paul's on about, and then I'll believe him, but not until that point.
We'll send you Rupert Bear and the white horses.
All right, good. Thanks so much, Paul. Thanks everybody. Thanks for your patience, and be well.
Thank you very much, mate. Take care.
And you. All the best. Cheers.
It's all coming back. Look,
look.
There we go.
Clicking everywhere.
Thank you very much.
He's still up.
That was a great session.
Good.
Oh yeah,
absolutely lovely.
My children are still up as well. I had to go and give my daughter back to my wife. She wasn't falling asleep on me. So,
wow.
No, that was fantastic. better than I had even imagined. So thank you very much for that. And the comments seem to reflect that as well. So
Good.
really, really good. So,
well, good luck with everything, guys, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers. See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
See you.
Wow, what a session.
That was brilliant. Absolutely lovely.
It was really good. God, that's yeah, I don't even know what to say after that. it was a great one. But thank you for all the comments. This will still be available to rewatch if you missed it or want to rewatch it and see any of the other. If you feel like you missed any bits or want to go over it again. Tomorrow we've got our last day of the photography show. Sad times, but it's been a great week. We've got Marianne Schuer at 3 p.m. tomorrow, and then we've got David Collier at 7 p.m. So do not miss that. Yeah, wow, what an evening. Have you got anything to say, Paul?
Amazing. No, only the fact that if anyone wants to see any more information about the shows coming up, or information or rewatch any of the videos that we've done on the virtual show, you can go over to our website, which is cambrianphoto.co.uk. On there we have a list of all the speakers that we had for the show. You can find full description of them all and rewatch them at any time. So go and check that out, guys. Also, make sure that you like and share this video. The more you do, the more it helps us sort of as who we are to spread the word about how we absolutely love the passion of photography. So big thank you.
And a massive thank you to you all, and a massive thank you to Jonathan and Paul for their time, and hope to see you all again soon.